Hello and welcome to the Now Spinning Magazine podcast with me, Phil Aston. And on this episode, I'm absolutely delighted to have with me Jordan Rudess from Dream Theater. Voted best keyboard player of all time by Music Radar magazine, which is on your website, but that is a huge badge of honor to have. But what I'd like to talk to you about today, Jordan, is Permission to Fly, this new solo album released on the 6th of September in multiple formats. I've got all of your solo albums, and this one feels very different in some ways. It feels more like a band project.
Oh, beautiful. I love hearing that because that was my intention. When I set out to do this album, how much thought that goes behind any kind of big creation like this. Before I walked into the studio to really start working on it, I wanted to conceive of what I wanted it to be. And there were many conversations, different people about the whole thing. And finally, I thought, you know what? I really want to make this like a band, kind of an album. And so my first thought was that I wanted to do an album that was not only like the Jordan wildly progressive side that sometimes I unleash, but I wanted to also include some maybe of the kind of music that I also like to listen to myself, like some gentler, spacier, easier to absorb kinds of music. And so I decided that I wanted to do something with, a good deal of vocals and that had that kind of balance between the energy. So, the first stop really was to find out who was going to sing on this album. The way I look at it these days, it seems like 95% of the singers out there all sound like Cookie Monster.
So yes, I understand that. Yeah.
And that's not quite what I wanted for this particular musical album. So I was looking around and I had some choices, but voices, they're so personal and everybody responds to a voice in a different way. One guy's golden voice is another guy's thing. I don't like it, whatever. So I wanted to find something that really resonated with a voice and a person that really resonated with me and that I felt was someone who could be symbiotic with the music that I was creating. Anyway, so the search began. And one day I was talking to Roy Avon at Prog Report, and he said to me, "Oh, I just wanted you to know about this singer that I know. Just, you should check him out. He's really great." And his name is Joe Payne. And I didn't know Joe Payne at all. Didn't know him, or I didn't know his music. But I checked it out and I thought, oh my God, this guy has a really beautiful voice. I should talk to him. So Roy put us together. To make a long story short, I ended up asking him if he would want to sing on my upcoming solo album. And he said, yes, definitely want to do it. So that was great. And working with him was just a wonderful experience. He's not only a lovely guy with a beautiful voice, but he made it really easy to work with him because he can record his vocals really well on his own. And he also, one of the things that I think contributes to this band idea is that he brought his Joe Payne magic into this album. And I was of the attitude, like, bring it on. He would send me stuff. He was like, is this okay? Because it's my album. I was like, Joe, just hit me with with what you do, man, because, I think you're a wonderful talent. And so, that's kind of the spirit that was behind it, where he felt like he could really do his thing and provide not only his lead vocals, but also create some beautiful vocal arrangements around the songs. And that was so important to me. So that worked out great. And then, of course, the backbeat of the album, if you will, is created by Darby Todd. And Darby and I met because Darby, also, of course, from the UK, as Joe is, Darby was the drummer with Devin Townsend, who I met when they were touring on the Dream Theater Dream Sonic tour. Yeah. And Darby and I hit it off and became very close very quickly. He's a lovely guy. And I also think he's an exceptional drummer. And I approached him when it came time to find the drummer about, playing on my solo album and said, look, I'd love to have you do this. I said, just a warning, some of my music, it's very crazy and progressive and it's not easy. And he was like, Jordan, he says, first of all, I really want to do it. And he said, look, they hire me to do the hard stuff. That's what I do. I was like, okay, well, then you got the job, buddy, because this is great. So, and working with him was fantastic. You know, what was so interesting to me about working with Darby Todd was that, you know, my music is a real blend of all the stylistic things that I have been interested in and have done through my life. Everything from Prokofiev or Bach or Rachmaninoff to Gentle Giant or Emerson, Lake and Palmer and King Crimson. So, you know, when it comes to offering or showing somebody my music, you wonder, like, how are they going to, what are they going to think? What are they
Yeah.
going to do? Like, what are they going to add to it? How are they going to know exactly where I'm coming from? But I mean, Darby just somehow, you know, he just got it, you know. So when he sent me back his tracks, I had very little to say. So I was like, oh my God. Like everything from my gentle songs to my
Yeah.
extreme prog, you
Yeah.
nailed. It's great. I
Yeah.
didn't have like I hardly had any changes for him. Like it was just amazing.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, I got a I got a core band here that is really, really working. And then just as we're mentioning musicians, so the other people who played on the album. So my very good friend Steve Dedayan played electric guitar and acoustic guitar on the album. Steve is actually a full-time professional dentist, but he's also an exceptional guitar player.
He certainly is.
Uh, Electric and acoustic. And the way that it happened was that he came over to hang out with me one day, and I was playing him a little bit of my music that I was working on. And he saw that I was playing, in addition to all the sounds that I play with my software, you know, strings, brass, pianos, organs, special effects, and everything. I also have some pretty good guitar sounds. So he saw that I was laying down some guitar-like tones from
Yeah.
my keyboard, and he was like, "Hey, you know what? He said, it sounds great." He says, but why don't you let me take this track home and I'll play, you know, real guitar on it
Yeah.
and see
Yeah.
how that sounds. And I was like, well, okay, yeah, sure, please. So when he sent it back, it was undeniable. It just had a life to it that I wasn't able. I mean, it sounded fine what I was doing, and no one would have blinked an eye. But having him really do it with his beautiful musicality on a guitar made a big difference. So after that, he was like, look, send me the whole thing. I'll do it at whatever parts you think, you know, I could like replace on the
Yeah.
guitar, acoustic or electric, I'll do. And that's what happened. So he really, really came through for me, did a beautiful job. And then he fixed my cavities the next day, which was fantastic as well. So
Perfect.
he's a real find. And then I had an extremely talented young man from Chile, actually, whose name is Bastion Martinez, a discovery of mine, um, play a couple of solos on the album, one of
Yeah.
which was on the song Embers,
Yeah.
which
It's a
was the
brilliant
first
track.
song to come
Yeah.
out. And then he also played on Into the Lair. He did some trades with me on that song. Just a marvelous guitar player, you know, young generation, next
Yeah.
generation
Yeah. Yeah.
talent. That was great. And then I also played a few guitar solos on the album. This time I decided that after my what's now been about a 3-year hobby, serious hobby of playing the guitar, I should play a little bit. And actually,
Yeah.
I would have done more, quite honestly. But I realized when the time came for me to dive into this album and do it, that I really didn't have the recording chops to be able to record
Yeah.
real instruments. I'm mostly working with MIDI, and you know that's my world. So I was like, oh wow, I forgot. I really need to. If I'm going to play the guitar, I need to also learn how to you know, be an engineer for this kind of audio, which I didn't really know much about, but I learned enough to just, you know, record some nice leads myself. And the final person I want to mention who contributed so greatly to this album is
The
my
lyrics.
daughter, Ariana, who wrote all the lyrics for the album. And the way that that happened was I knew when I decided that I wanted to have a lot of vocals on the album, I also realized that the lyrics were going to play a big part of it. And, you know, when I listen to an album, I'm listening to the music and I'll notice the lyrics when they don't fit the flow of the music. So otherwise, the lyrics are just a sound to me. And I do like writing lyrics, but quite honestly, that's my main concern, that they just sound good. So I was thinking, well, that's nice. I can do that always. But let me get somebody who's really into writing, who's
Words.
creative, who's a linguist to do this. And that's my daughter's thing. She's a writer. She's extremely creative. She was an English major. She speaks Italian, French, and language is her game. And also, she's been studying progressive rock with me since she was born, learning how to
Wow.
tap in 7/8 and odd time signatures on the way to nursery school. So I found a great partner in that regard, somebody who could not only provide me with lyrics that sounded beautiful as they were being sung, but also were telling pretty cool stories and that would be interesting and for people who are into lyrics could dive into and really explore. So that was my team.
So did Ariana? Did she have the melodies to write the lyrics too, or did she come up with some of the melodies herself?
No, I actually wrote the melodies,
Right.
kind of just
Okay.
played them in, which I sent to Ari and I also sent to Joe, and then Joe would modify a little bit here and there for his voice.
Yeah.
But Ari had her guide, which she
Yeah.
had to fit the lyrics into, and that's not easy.
No,
But because
it's
of
not.
because of her training, she was able to do it. She knows me so well, and she was really able to do it. The other thing that Ari did, she was a real co-producer on this album, because one of the things that I was doing before I settled in to work on it was I would record little bits of inspiration. Like I just turn on my camera on my iPhone and just record here and
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Like if I feel something, I'd go play it. Oh, well, this is a little bit.
Oh wow.
So after I had about 30 or 40 of those, I was like, okay, well, maybe there's some of these. I remember I liked some of these, but there's so many of them. Like, which ones are going to be the ones that really going to work? So I enlisted her, which she loved to do. I said, let's listen to these together. Which are the most magical, the ones that really, hit you and feel like they would be great songs. So she really helped me sort through those all, to the point where I had 4 or 5 of them that were like, okay, these are the ones, these have some real vibes to them. Like one of them, for instance, was Shadow of the Moon, the chorus to that, which I just, I walk to the piano, I have a feeling, and I just put my hands down and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
play something. And that's how that came about. So that allowed me to go into the studio and to reference those quick videos and say, okay, today's project is I take this little 10-second clip and I make a full song out of it. But that was great to have that. And it was great to have her ear and energy with me to kind of like do that. And not only that, she also was instrumental in picking the order for the songs in the album. And after it was all done, she remembered everything even better than me. And I was like, Ari, well, that song, like
Yeah.
totally like, on it.
The sequencing is wonderful, and the other thing to mention, I feel like I should mention about Joe is his interpretation of those lyrics, because he's inside them. He sounds like he totally believes everything that he's singing. I think that's an important point I'd like to get across. Really, because some of a lot of the way the delivery of the voice is very emotive. There's sadness, there's hope, in a bit of melancholy also, but it sounds so lovely, the voice. And you say it's such an emotional ride, this album. It goes through everything.
Oh, did you know Joe's voice before this album, or
No,
so you
I
knew?
I didn't.
Wow.
But
So
it's
you didn't know the Enid, which is what's a prog group that
yes, I
he.
know the Enid, but I don't know the Enid from the period that Joe was with them.
Oh,
But no, his voice is fantastic. But also, there must have been a challenge I put down on The Alchemist, for instance.
yeah.
It must have been a challenge vocally to know how to fit all that in, because it's quite
Really.
isn't it?
Well,
There's some gentle giant vocal lines in there.
oh, yes, there's that one. There is one section that's very prog,
Yeah.
and the rhythm of it is very unusual when it's in harmony and it hits.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, Joe is not only a great singer, he is very well musically versed.
Right.
I think he reads music and he is just very intelligent, and it didn't faze him. Matter of fact, one of the things Ari's got a great sense of rhythm as well. But when we were writing the verses in The Alchemist, she was like, it's really tricky.
Yeah.
It has this kind of da 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 da. It's this thing you kind of got to latch onto. It's unusual. So she was concerned how Joe was going to feel, if he was going to feel it. And I
Yeah.
sent
Yeah.
it to Joe. I said, "I'm a little concerned about this." He was like, "What do you mean? It's nothing." It was like nothing to him. He was just totally did it. It sounds like it's
Yeah,
the
it sounds like a
easiest
suite
thing
of
in the
song. It
world.
sounds like a suite of songs in some ways. There's so much going on in that, and
A lot.
the drums and the bass. It almost sounds live. I know, obviously, you would do everything was done in people's own studios, but it sounds like you're all together.
Well, you're also looking at the bass player, by the way. I played all the bass
Yeah,
on the album,
yeah,
not on the bass guitar, but I do it on my keyboards, and got every sound in the world, so I don't have
yeah.
an issue.
There's a bass line on "Into the Lair" at about 3 minutes, but it sounds like Marcus Miller.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Well,
Really,
I love thinking like a bass player as a
yeah.
pianist. As someone who can move their left hand. I mean, you have to think about the way the lower register moves, and especially in the studio when I have every sound in the world, then I take that compositional kind of awareness and I enjoy putting it into bass lines. It's just part of
And
me.
and you're saying about how it's been sequenced, because you've got tracks like "Footstep in the Snow," which is a beautiful, almost ballad, very emotive, beautiful chorus and vocals. And then you've got, some really heavy metal riffs 6 minutes into the Lair again, which is one of the highlights, I think, of the album for me. But not just because I'm a Dream Theater fan, but also the way that, as you say, this flows really. Shadow of the Moon's great. And I also love the one at the very end on, I know there's two extra bonus tracks, but I haven't heard those, is Dreamer, which is
Yeah.
just layers and layers of gorgeous
Mm.
keyboards as
Mm.
well, which just really bookends the album so well with the
Oh.
opener of The Final Threshold.
Nice, nice. Oh, good to hear you say. I'll tell Ari that you're reacting to that. She spent a lot of time immersing herself in everything and thinking about the order. I have a lot of respect for people who take things on that deeply. In that case, I'm like, you know what? Go for it. Pick the order. I'm so grateful. Somebody cares
But yeah, I
so
mean, because
much.
you have these kind of like beautiful songs and almost ballads, just songs, just great, well, crafted songs. And then you've got things like Eternal, which is like a Sabbath riff at the beginning, Hammond organ, it's like jazz rock, more Gentle Giant in there as well, I reckon. And the vocals don't arrive until 3 minutes in. I actually thought this
Right.
must be an instrumental, but it isn't.
That's funny. I guess I can't hide my influences, right? I don't try to
Well,
really.
I definitely heard Gentle Giant, and also I love John Lord, so I love it. The kind of, the Hammond organ when it pops up every so often, which I
Yeah.
know you're also influenced by Keith Emerson, but
Well, for sure, for sure. Yeah, all of those guys. No, Keith Emerson was probably my greatest keyboard hero, and any chance I get to tip the hat to
yeah,
to him, of course, and John Lord, I mean, really as well. I mean, that was Deep Purple's music was probably the first like prog I ever became exposed to, and that
yeah,
sound was an influence, for sure.
yeah. Well, thank you very much, Jordan, for your time. This is a great album, and as I say, the sequencing and I love the way it sounds like a band. And if you're a Dream Theater fan, you're going to enjoy this. But equally, I think it shows different shades and sides to your creative spirit, really. But I think the band themselves are just fantastic. I love the lyrics as well. They're very deep, and they don't wash over you. There's lots to really get into here. I think it's one of those albums where the more you play it, especially obviously on the more proggy ones, it gives something back to you with each listen.
I love that. And that resonates with me because my very, very favorite progressive rock albums in the world, I had that experience where I listened to them once and I thought, yeah, that's really cool. And then I listened to them again. And I was like, I really like this. And then the third, fourth time, I'm like, I absolutely love this. Because there's a lot of, as you say, there's a lot of, that's in the genre. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of information. And I think it's meant to be kind of like that. No, I don't think anyone should expect that on a first listen that somebody could absorb all the detail and everything that's going on. It takes a little bit of brain power, and you have to give yourself the permission to fly to be able to get into the music.
Yeah, I totally agree. A huge thank you to my guest, Jordan Rudess from Dream Theater. His new solo album, Permission to Fly, is out on the 6th of September. And it's very different to other solo albums that Jordan has done. This is a band project in a way, and that's how it's been approached. And I think the way the album's been sequenced is just perfect. Darby Todd on drums, Joe Payne on vocals, Ariana's lyrics, which is Jordan's eldest daughter, and Steve Dazium, who's also a professional dentist, on guitar, and Bastion Martinez on guitars, who's from Chile. I loved every track, and it's one of those albums that just keeps giving. With each listen, it gives more of its secrets away. There is really complex prog on there, and I was able, it would appear, to identify some of Jordan's influences in Gentle Giant. There are certainly some tracks that have Gentle Giant vocal lines and grooves, but there's lots of great stuff on there. But I also love the kind of gentler ballads as well. Joe Payne's interpretation of the lyrics is just sublime. It really, really is. It's a fantastic album. It's complex prog, but it also covers, I think, every human emotion. Great album, Permission to Fly. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting Now Spinning Magazine. Remember, you can buy merch. You can subscribe to the website, to the YouTube channel. Please do, and to the podcast. We're out there on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you're on social media. So we're Now Spinning Magazine. You become a patron. You can become a YouTube member. And don't forget the Facebook group where like-minded collectors from around the world meet up to talk about what they've been listening to. Thank you again. And remember that music is the healer and the doctor. Take care, keep spinning those discs, and I'll see you all very, very soon.